Fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behaviour is now set for the rest of their lives. And, when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
Reports of flying saucers are nothing new.
These are routine sightings, not isolated events.
Are you seeing that? It's spinning. There's a whole swarm of them.
Oh my God! They're all against the wind. All against the wind. Oh, look at this. That's 110, 150.
There was an historic hearing today on Capitol Hill and an unprecedented bipartisan push for UFO transparency.
とにかくまず今日は浜からついてるクリエイティブでビューティフルなコラボレーションをしてる。
I told you to take Broadway. This always happens.
The world government is planning a supernatural event of its own. According to reputable sources, the government are going to fake an alien invasion in the year 2024 in order to usher in a one world government. Here's where it gets really interesting. In his 1994 book, Project Bluebeam, investigative journalist Serge Monost writes that the United Nations, NASA, and other government agencies have been working in secret since 1983 on a top secret operation called Project Bluebeam. The purpose? To pave the way for a global government by fooling people into thinking it's the end of the world. Here's how it works according to Mr. Monost. First, the global elite will fake an alien invasion, convincing the world that aliens are planning to take over major cities across the globe. Second, religious populations will be treated to a rapture, or fulfillment of their religion's prophecies. This will all be fake, conducted through the use of large-scale holograms and microchips hidden within most modern electronics.
2024, a global event will alter the course of mankind's future. The world will stand witness to a massive alien invasion. Thousands of projected holographic alien warships will blanket the skies, sending people into a global panic. Real military crafts within the holograms will inflict actual damage to the surrounding areas to sell the gimmick.
Once the various nations of the world topple under the mass of civil unrest and panic, the New World Order will assert itself, and the people of the world, desperate for any sort of authority, will accept its rule. The notorious globalist Henry Kissinger let the cat out of the bag about the plan in the late 70s. Kissinger, who is Klaus Schwab's mentor, explained in clear terms how the globalists would convince Americans to accept the New World Order. He wrote, "Today Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all the peoples of the world will pledge with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by their world government." Kissinger wasn't the only insider in the late 70s speaking about how the elite will attempt to hijack humanity and brute force a world government upon them. Wernher von Braun, the German and US aerospace engineer who worked on Operation Paperclip, confessed on his deathbed in 1977 that the global elites were planning to use terrorists and pandemics as false flags to manipulate and control the masses. Even more interestingly, von Braun said that the final false flag will be a fake alien invasion. The global elites engineered a crisis with the COVID pandemic to erode the sovereignty of nations and terrify the masses into compliance, and they half succeeded. But as anyone who has been paying attention to the disturbing rhetoric coming out of Davos recently will know, the global elite are not done with us yet. It appears that COVID was the dress rehearsal and they have an even greater con up their sleeves. So what should we be doing to stay alert and ensure they don't get away with the plan? Mr. Monast provided details about exactly how the global elite will perpetrate the con. He stated that NASA will use low-frequency electromagnetic waves to communicate telepathically and that the New World Order will phase out cash. At the time, skeptics had several issues with this conspiracy theory. First and foremost, the technology required to inundate the world with realistic visions of aliens and messiahs simply didn't exist in the early 1990s. But fast forward to our present age and all of the futuristic tech that Mr. Monast spoke about has been rolled out by the elite in recent years. There is no doubt that the global elite have the technology to pull off the con. We do know that the US government briefly entertained the idea of using a hologram during the Iraq War. US Air Force planners brainstorming on the best way to achieve a bloodless coup in Iraq proposed creating a giant hologram that would appear to be Allah commanding Iraqis to overthrow Saddam Hussein. This plan was never implemented, but the fact it was even considered at such a high level proves that the technology exists. Microchips, holograms, electromagnetic waves for telepathic communication. It's uncanny how everything Monast wrote about in 1994 has been rolled out by the World Economic Forum in the last couple of years. Skeptics at the time also questioned whether governments across the world could really cooperate and coordinate closely enough to pull off this mass con. But again, everything Monast wrote about in his book has come to pass. The World Economic Forum has penetrated governments all over the world, placing its own people in the highest offices in the land, in Canada, New Zealand, France and Brazil, to name just a few countries.
That we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
In 2023, there is no question that governments across the world could coordinate closely enough to pull off a mass con. We've already seen it happen with the COVID pandemic. The global elite had governments and mainstream media singing from the same hymn sheet. Mr. Monast was said to be writing a new book with bombshell further information regarding government plans for Project Bluebeam. However, he was found dead in 1996. The official cause of death was listed as a heart attack.
The world of sci-fi has been promising us holograms for years. Think holochess in Star Wars or Princess Leia beaming a message out of R2-D2.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
A lot of the holograms we've seen outside of sci-fi, like Tupac or Michael Jackson appearing on stage, have actually just been clever illusions. But Silicon Valley company Lightfield Lab has created a real hologram, without the headgear, that you can see in front of you just like a real object. I'm here at Lightfield Lab in Silicon Valley, ready to see a concept known as solid light. They're pitching this as a genuine hologram. This isn't virtual reality, this isn't augmented reality, this isn't a picture of Tupac on a stage. This is going to be something that feels like a real object that I can actually walk around and see, interact with from multiple angles. I have no idea what I'm about to see through that door, but I'm pretty excited to check it out. Unlike other technologies, solid light doesn't rely on spinning volumetric displays or reflections projected up onto angled glass. Instead, Lightfield Lab says this technology is the highest resolution holographic display platform ever designed. A light source sends light through a multi-layered piece of polymer known as a phase guide that steers and focuses the light into mid-air, essentially creating a hologram in the space in front of you. The result is what Lightfield Lab calls a solid light object that moves, refracts and reflects in physical space. Seeing it with my own eyes, I realised the solid light name makes sense. At first, it looks like you should be touching something solid, even if it's just a screen or a piece of reflective glass. But I was just passing my hands through light. So I'm in front of the solid light demonstration now, and it looks probably to you like I'm just watching a TV screen, that I'm just standing in front of a flat display, but it's actually a hologram. Sorry, I just had to wait for the chameleon to catch a fly there. It feels like it should be about here. This is where it should feel like I'm touching a screen, but there's nothing here. And if I put my hand further through, it's like I can still see the animal, but my hand is passing through it. I'm 6 inches into this box and I can't feel anything. It's just air. So what should feel like a flat screen here, maybe I'd be touching the very front of the animal right here. I'm able to actually pass through it, and it looks like it should be fairly solid, but it's not. It's just thin air. And the coolest thing is, I mean, my glasses do look great, but these aren't 3D. These are just because I have bad eyesight. So if I take them off, with or without glasses, it's exactly the same. It's pretty crazy. No headset, no 3D glasses, and no screen. One of the coolest demos I saw was using a magnifying glass to actually magnify the hologram, just like it was a real object. I didn't just see a close-up of a display like I would with a two-dimensional screen. The hologram I saw was about 10 inches across, and it was being generated by a single solid light panel, though you don't actually see that panel in the installation. Lightfield Lab says each one of those 28-inch diagonal panels generates an effective density of 10 billion pixels per square metre, and they can be scaled up, potentially using multiple panels to make a massive wall. Unlike other light effects that use forced perspective to create the illusion of dimensions, you can still see the same hologram from multiple angles without any distortion, kind of like you'd see a real object. So I'm standing here about 1 metre or 3 feet away from the display or the demonstration, and this is where the Lightfield Lab team says that's kind of the optimal viewing angle. And if I walk around, it's pretty amazing. You walk around and it's not like, maybe another display where it starts to look warped or a weird angle because it's designed just to be viewed in this one spot. Of course, the magic here really comes when you see it with your own eyes. We saw this hologram in a small room, and it's hard to capture the full effect and play it back on a 2D screen. But this is just the beginning. Lightfield Lab says you'll be able to see this tech out in the real world as early as next year. The company has financial backing from the likes of Samsung, Verizon and Comcast NBC Universal, and says it already has alpha partners that are planning to use the tech to create their own hologram displays. So the idea is you could come up to a hologram display maybe at an airport, at an entertainment venue, at a theme park, and instead of just seeing flat screens on a wall, you could see these displays and actually experience holograms in person. So instead of just looking at what is effectively a larger version of your own TV, you could kind of see something that appears to be a real object, but it's actually just made up of light.
Bro, look at these clouds. What is going on? What is that?
But look over there, there's a circle one that's the actual cloud. Yeah. It's like a missing puzzle piece or something.
What is going on here with these clouds?
A state of emergency has been declared in Bell County for the total solar eclipse on April 8th. The county made this official in a press conference today. Joining us now live with more on what this means is 6 News reporter Meredith Haas. Meredith?
Lindsay, Bell County Judge David Blackburn says this declaration will give the county better access to state resources. In his meeting with officials from around the county today, Blackburn says the infrastructure in place in Bell County might not be sustainable come April 8th. He says Bell County's population of 400,000 people might double or even triple in the days before the eclipse. That could potentially disrupt cell service and their response times in case of an emergency.
If you have to buy groceries, if you have to put gas in your car, or you have to run errands, do all of that in the days before the April 8th weekend.
This declaration also requires property owners outside of city limits to register with Bell County Emergency Management Office if the landowner expects to host an event with 50 or more people. For more information on the eclipse and the declaration made today, head on over to kcentv.com.
Certainly is a lot of anticipation.
My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I lead in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, when there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree that the water should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. Now therefore hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear instruction, and be wise, and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoso findeth me, findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.